The invoice was £19,000. The work was done, delivered, and confirmed in writing. And then, 42 days after it was due, the client sent an email claiming the project had significant gaps. There were no gaps. What there was a contract clause he hadn't read carefully enough. By the end of this story, a mid-sized financial services firm in the north of England will have paid every penny owed, plus statutory interest on top, without a single court appearance, without a heated argument, and without the consultant raising her voice once. The way it ended wasn't loud. It was precise. And the thing that made it possible had been sitting in a standard contract document for years, quietly waiting. Stay with this. 9 years into freelance UX consulting, the person at the center of this story had built the kind of practice that runs on referrals and reputation. Careful work, clean documentation, clients who came back. In the autumn of the previous year, a referral came in from a financial services firm called Harland & Mott, based out of Leeds. Mid-sized, established, the kind of client that looks straightforward on paper. The contact was their head of digital, a man we'll call Marcus Reeve. Marcus had found her through a mutual connection, presented well on the early calls, and signed the contract with minimal negotiation. The project was a full redesign of their client-facing portal. Wireframes, prototypes, coordinating user testing, and a final design handoff to the development team. The scope was clearly defined. The fee was £47,500, split into 3 installments, 30% upfront, 30% at midpoint delivery, 40%, £19,000, on final sign-off. The first 2 payments arrived on schedule. Every milestone was delivered on schedule. She had a habit, developed over years, and 1 or 2 difficult experiences on smaller projects, of over-documenting everything. Deliverables uploaded to a shared project folder with time-stamped entries. Every approval requested in writing. Every verbal conversation on a call followed up within the hour by a summary email, asking the client to confirm the notes were accurate. Marcus and his team confirmed every time. That habit, as it turned out, was not paranoia. It was preparation. The final deliverable was submitted on the 14th of March, a completed design system and fully annotated prototype. Marcus acknowledged receipt the same day. His words, in an email that still exists, it looked, quote, really solid. The final invoice was issued that afternoon. Net 30 days. Due date, the 13th of April. The 13th of April passed without payment. A polite follow-up went out on the 14th. No response. A second message on the 18th. Marcus replied that there were, quote, some concerns about the deliverables, and that he needed to discuss the matter with the wider team. She asked him to specify the concerns in writing so she could address them directly. He said he would get back to her. He did not. A follow-up on the 25th of April finally produced a response, a lengthy email from Marcus claiming the final prototype had significant gaps, that the design system was incomplete, and that the user testing documentation was not what had been agreed. It was, on close reading, a remarkably vague document. No file names, no references to specific deliverables, no comparison against the agreed scope. Nothing she could actually open and examine. Just a wall of imprecise language designed to sound like a legitimate grievance. She had seen this pattern before on smaller projects. Someone decides not to pay, then constructs a retrospective reason. The complaint isn't designed to be resolved. It's designed to be argued about indefinitely, until the person owed money either gives up or accepts a reduced settlement just to move on. The project folder contained 340 files, every one of them time-stamped, every approval confirmed in writing. Marcus had responded positively to deliverables throughout. He had used the word solid. And now, 6 weeks after that confirmation, he was claiming the work had never met the brief. What followed was not panic. It was not an angry reply. It was 2 quiet days spent going back through the contract. There is a particular kind of professional dishonesty that relies on the other person being too exhausted, too conflict-averse, or too financially pressured to push back properly. It counts on the freelancer needing the money more than the client needs their reputation. It usually works. It had worked on her once before, years earlier, on a much smaller project. It would not work here. Because this time, the contract had teeth. The consultancy agreement she used had been drafted originally by a solicitor in 2019 and updated several times since, each amendment shaped by something she had learned the hard way. 2 clauses were directly relevant. The first was a written acceptance clause. It stated that any concerns about deliverables had to be raised in writing within 7 business days of delivery, with specific reference to the agreed scope document. After that window closed, deliverables were considered accepted in full. The second was a late payment clause, which specified that invoices unpaid after 45 days would accrue interest at 8% above the Bank of England base rate, and that if recovery action became necessary, the client was liable for reasonable legal costs and an additional compensatory sum equal to the full outstanding invoice amount, a provision drawn from the Late Payment of Commercial Debts, Act 1998. Marcus had acknowledged receipt of the final deliverables on the 14th of March. His concerns email arrived on the 25th of April. That was 30 business days after delivery. The acceptance window was 7. He had missed it by a margin that was difficult to argue with. More than that, his acknowledgement email, the one where he said the work looked really solid, functioned as written confirmation. He had, in the most practical sense, already accepted the deliverables. She did not send an angry reply on the 25th. She waited until the 2nd of May. Then she sent a letter, by email and by recorded post, that was, by every account, extremely calm and extremely specific. It set out the full timeline: delivery date, acknowledgement date, acceptance window close date, invoice date, due date, current date. It referenced the relevant clause numbers in the contract. It noted that the outstanding amount was now actionable under the Late Payment of Commercial Debts Act, and that given the compensatory provisions in the contract, the sum she would be seeking through the courts was £38,000. The original $19,000, plus the equivalent compensatory amount, plus accrued interest, plus estimated legal costs. She gave him 14 days to pay the original invoice in full before a claim was filed. She had already spoken to a solicitor, a woman in Leeds, someone she had been referred to through a professional contact. The solicitor reviewed the contract, reviewed the email chain, and told her it was about as clean a case as she saw in this area of work. The estimated fee to take it to a claim was around £2,800, comfortably within the amount she would recover from Harland and Mott if it went that way. She was not bluffing. That matters. The threat of legal action only carries weight when the person making it has already done the preparation. She had. Marcus called on the 6th of May. He was not warm on the call, but he was not aggressive either. He said there had been some miscommunication internally, and that he wanted to resolve the matter. She told him there was nothing to resolve on her end, other than payment of the invoice. He asked whether she would consider a reduced settlement. She told him she wasn't in a position to do that, and that if payment was not received by the 16th of May, she would be filing the claim for the full compensatory amount. The call ended. There was no further argument. No second call from Marcus trying a different angle. No legal letter from Harland and Mott's solicitors suggesting the contract was unenforceable. Nothing. What came instead, on the 14th of May, was a bank transfer. £19,000 in full. She confirmed receipt. She did not write a warm reply. On the 17th of May, she issued a second invoice. the statutory interest that had accrued on the overdue amount, calculated to the date of payment. £312. The invoice referenced the same clause in the contract, noted the 7-day payment window, and included the calculation she had used, so there was no ambiguity. It was paid on the 22nd of May. No reply. No complaint. No further contact from Marcus Reeve or anyone else at Harland and Mata. 340 files. Every one of them still sitting in that shared project folder, time-stamped, approved, and never actually disputed in any specific detail, because there was nothing specific to dispute. What she recovered, in the end, was the full £19,000, plus £312 in statutory interest. Not the $38,000 that would have followed a successful court claim, because the claim never needed to be filed. The threat of following through, backed by actual preparation and an airtight paper trail, was sufficient. Marcus Reeve had constructed a vague complaint and assumed the other party would either fold or fight on uncertain ground. She did neither. She simply showed him the ground she was standing on, clearly without drama, with clause numbers and a deadline, and he made the only rational calculation available to him. The consultancy agreement was updated in June. The acceptance window was tightened from 7 business days to 5. A small change, the kind of change that comes from experience rather than resentment. 9 years of freelance work, 340 files, and a contract clause added years earlier after a project that went badly in a different way. All of it quietly waiting for exactly this situation. She still works in UX consulting. The project is listed on her portfolio without annotation, just the client type, the scope, and the outcome. Clean work, delivered on time, accepted in writing. Most clients are straightforward. A small number are not. The difference in this case was not luck, not a dramatic confrontation, and not the intervention of anyone external. It was documentation. It was preparation. It was a contract drafted carefully and updated incrementally over nearly a decade. Debts don't disappear because someone pretends they aren't owed. Paper keeps records longer than memory does,